So, great. So, in looking at woods today, anything, I mean, you mentioned in the notes about driver being something you're not overly, it's not overly working for you at the moment.
No, it's the bane of my existence. Yeah, so, yeah, I've got an admission. So basically I had the Cobra Speed Zone Extreme.
Okay, yeah.
Had that for a number of years. I had my own shaft, but it's like an inch shorter.
Yeah. Put
head weight in, but I was feeling it's like quite head heavy.
Yeah.
And I was still getting the hooks.
Okay.
So I booked the fitting here, and then I put my old driver on eBay, and then you know had to change the appointment.
Yeah.
So, but this guy was insistent that he wanted my driver, so I actually sold it. But I just bought this one because I know, you know, if it's not suitable, then it was cheap. Do you know what I mean? In the Black Friday stuff, so I know that I've got a friend I play with. He'll take that off my hands.
Got it. Got it.
But I put my shaft in it, and I haven't got the head weight yet, so it's going to be ridiculously. The swing weight's going to be terrible.
And generally, is there anything from a swing point of view that you're working on at the moment?
Yeah.
We'll go back to the key thought.
Yeah, a bit of a tinkerer. So, yeah, I'm trying to alleviate, you know, like the early extension stuff unsuccessfully, and yeah, this flying right elbow just drives me insane. So, yeah, you know, working with the inflatable ball tour striker, but it's like translating it from practice to the course. It's not quite happening, but yeah, those are the things I'm working on really. Yeah.
And is the right to left been sort of generally over time always been the missed tendency?
Yeah. I used to think like the hook, like I'm terrified of the hook, but I used to think I suffered more with the big block, like the 50-odd block. But more recently, the hook's been just coming more and more.
Yeah. Okay. It's one where, I mean, in principle, the block and the hook are really from the same thing. It just depends on which one you're more scared of as to which way it goes.
Yeah.
But it's that's inside part. Any other sports you've done a lot of in particular?
Yeah, a bit of everything. You know, football, cricket, basketball. Yeah, I was into all of that stuff. But just been obsessed with golf for the last 10, 15 years, really.
Yeah. Once it's got you, isn't it, as a sport? What got you into golf originally?
That was my sister, actually. Yeah, we used to mess around with different things, and yeah, she got into golf, and then she took me down the range, and then we started playing, and then she gave up. But like I said, I was hooked, and then just started playing like once a week. So yeah, just always, like I said, always tinkering, always. I like both aspects, like the equipment stuff and the swing stuff. I'm always watching it. Like I said, it can be detrimental sometimes, but it's just interesting.
Yeah, there's always something that you can be working on. There's always more info out there, and it's. I say, well, one bit of the game's working, another bit's not, and then vice versa. So it's always switching around. So. And any injuries at all?
Just get very stiff back. So yeah, I'd like to just do a nice little warm up before we get going. Try and get moving, and apart from that, not really. Yeah. Just old age.
Development.
Yeah. Ongoing.
That progression that none of us want is inevitable. Yeah. So I'll measure a few bits on the irons as well, but feel free to grab any club you like and have a loose.
Yeah, I'd be interested in the 6 iron. Sorry, what you? Because it just feels different to me. It feels. the sound is different. It doesn't feel different as in swing weight, but when I hit it, it has a different feel and sound to it.
I'll have a little look. It can be potentially some little things like the badge in the back could be coming loose, depending on what the nature of the sound differential is. There are some models where the construction changes very slightly between one club and another, but it's normally 7 to 8. So
just take the
I'll have a
yellow
little
ones,
check out of that. So what size glove do you wear?
Medium large. You see that I tend to grip down on everything. So the +4s I've really felt have helped.
Got it. Yeah. So one of the things we're doing is there's a glove for everyone to have and use in the video. If you like, say, leather glove, compressor leather. Chap who's sourced all the materials from Indonesia and getting them made over there, but they're premium leather, but a far better value than most you normally find. So, British chap, he's based in Stevenage. Really nice quality leather. Based them on the construction, the shaping of the premium FootJoy ones. But those come in at more like £10 a glove.
Lovely.
Versus 25. So something that we're giving everyone who's coming in for a fit to have a try out and see if you like. So from a swing point of view, is there a particular thing that you're doing with the action from a from a lesson standpoint? What's the key thing that you're working on? Obviously avoiding the left side, but the actual move you're making.
Basically trying to, it's actually, there's a couple people I've been watching videos of, and actually one of Stuart's videos I watched on early extension did help. Because I don't really record my swing when I'm at the range, but I did, and then I noticed I was so far bent forward to try and create some room. Yeah. And then I've started standing a bit taller and basically trying to initiate my downswing, like getting that left hip back. Okay. Yeah. Trying to do that. Sometimes it works. Sometimes I just get impatient and the arms overtake it. So. Basically, that's what I'm working on, yeah. Got it.
And generally, flight-wise, would you tend to see sort of flatter, stronger flight?
With the irons, it's very flat. Yeah. And I quite enjoy that, to be honest. I think these are quite low spin as well, these irons.
Yeah, quite strong. Yeah, loft's fairly strong.
Yeah, strong loft, a bit low spin. So I use the Pro V1X off the driver. The last driver I had was 10.5, and I noticed it used to launch very high. Okay. I just feel like I'm not, from the distance I hit my irons, I don't think I get the commensurate distance with the woods.
Got it. Okay. It's one of the things with the stronger lofted irons. It can give a little bit of a slightly kind of false distance in that you're 6 irons down at 25 degrees. So if you go into sort of old school lofts, that's close on a 4 iron. Yes. Yeah, so it can be, and it depends on where the carry to run outside of it is, but it can sometimes make them appear pretty strong. So that's a 7 you've got there. Yeah. So in terms of launch wise, it's the 7's going to be around 29 odd degrees. So it's not a million miles off where we'd look for a 6 iron flight to be. So however, having said that, the 5 iron is going to be where certainly, say for example, a 4 iron flight would be. So it shouldn't be ridiculous, but obviously when we see the dynamics with the driver swing, we'll be able to kind of take a look and go, okay, well this bit relates into that, and how potentially that's going to translate through to the woods as well. So
yeah, I mean, when I got the 4 iron with them, and I sold it. it's just like 19, I think. It's ridiculously low, and I couldn't use it off of fairway. and even off the tee, it was like a miss hit would be, you know, it was just too low lofted.
Yep. Yeah, that's makes it pretty tough. So you tend to pick it off the top rather than take too much divot.
Yeah, very shallow. But I use this drill, like basically have an iron, but the ball's in a driver position.
Right.
To try and help me get that left hip
Get a
back.
little more, yeah.
And, but yeah, I am shallow.
Because it's interesting with that, because you normally, the sort of stronger flight, I know the irons are a little stronger, but the more someone picks it, the more you would expect a slightly higher flight. So the fact that you're still got a fairly strong launch, it's going to be, so when we start looking at the driver's side, that's a delivery of dynamic loft, how you're actually delivering the club from an impact position point of view, because you'd expect it to generate quite a lot of flight. Now, it might be with the driver being off a tee in particular that then changes with the ball teed up. So, but yeah, we'll
I've had sessions before, and it's like, you know, from like 5 to 7 up on the ball, like.
Okay. Yeah.
With the driver.
Okay, that would explain it.
Yeah. It's,
but it's like with the driver. That's why you've got different lofts to be able to find an optimal flight pattern. You know, so you get people to hit 4 or 5 degrees down, and if you're 4 or 5 up, that's dynamically just from the swing alone 10 degrees. Yeah. So yeah, seeing that relationship of delivery, angle attack and path, and then dynamic loft.
I did, so like I said, it was 10.5 my last driver. I got the 9 because I was just hoping to get, you know, more ball speed.
Yeah.
But I've literally just hit it once at the range last Friday, and like the 9 degrees, like I'm quite sensitive with being a hooker to the club face pointing left, and it just looks like it's pointing left to me. But it's probably just loft thing, isn't it?
Normally with more loft it would look more left.
Really?
Depends on the head style a little bit and what they're trying to promote from that design. So so the LTD, let's see. So actually that sits very square. So it can be that sometimes the face markings can make it look a little closed, a little more open, the line around the toe. So you certainly, I can certainly sympathise being someone with a left-hand miss.
I'd be, my 5 wood, because I've notched that down lower. Technically that should open the face.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, that looks close to me.
Again, probably the amount of loft with the 5 wood, I would imagine. I'll have a quick look at that just to make certain. But yeah, it's interesting, the different visual dynamics around the leading edge and the toe line and how they design those. So that one, yeah, no, that sits open. Or definitely not closed anyway. But what you're probably looking at is the line where that kicks forward there. That's the bit that you're seeing, and probably seeing it kind of feeling a little bit closed because of that. But actually the club itself definitely doesn't sit shut. But it's all part of a confidence thing. There are going to be certain head shapes that will just set up better for your eye. Thank you. Will set up better for your eye. Yeah. And it's almost one if it stops you worrying about it going, if you're relaxed and free it up a little bit more, and chances are they'll lose some of the left-hand side. It's funny, it's an unmeasurable bit, but actually makes a hell of a difference.
I suppose just how you're swinging on the day as well. If you flushed a few down the middle, you're not worried about what the face looks like, you're just hitting it, aren't you?
Yeah, you should just be seeing where you want it to go rather than where you're trying to avoid it going, Yeah, certainly, so from a base setup point of view, where you asked about the 6-iron, there's definitely nothing kind of raw structure in terms of balance or anything like that that's out of sync with any of the others. So potentially the only thing, if it sounds different, it'll just be where some of the tech potentially progresses in the head. Or have a look at the 7-iron. Check that there's nothing coming loose that I can see from an initial inspection.
Swing weights all over the place. Well, the wedges actually, more so. But.
Yeah, I mean that's actually pretty tight to tolerance. And so we think through the irons. So you've got a. So I mean, I think the amount of sets that they're building day in day out to have a 0.3 of a point lighter in the 8 and then 0.4 of a point heavier in the 5-iron until you get to pitch. Otherwise, they're really pretty tight. We'd always, with the SM9s, we are seeing that where the 50, 54 and 56s are a little bit heavier actually than some. So D5 is kind of where they'd aim for with the 54 and the 60, and around D3 on the 48, but then the slightly thicker grip. That'll make it just a small difference on swing weight. But yeah, that is just something that we see from those heads. There is quite a disparity between a 48-50 and then when you get to the 54, they kick up in weight. So yeah, I mean, easily remedied, but quite a big difference there. Outside of that, all are really pretty tight on tolerance. There's a ½ a degree here or there on the lofts. So it's probably, if it's the sound side of things, once we've done the drive bit, I'll have a double check just to see if I can see anything or hear anything in particular. It's like, some of it's like to be a progression in the tech in the head.
Yeah, Mizuno do it quite a lot, don't they, through their irons? Yeah,
certainly between 8 and 7 there's normally a little bit. Let's just see with these, with the pros, where you've got development in the amount of cavity that goes into the back of the head here. That'll change the acoustics a little bit, but I'll say once we check the woods out, I'll have a couple of hits myself and see if I can find anything untoward in there. Yeah, I'm at the top end. So the driver's not crazy light, considering the length of it at 44 1/4. C8.5's not that light, so it's not too bad. If you put the 3/4 inch on, you're up at about D2, D3. So that's fairly neutral head weight.
I suppose what I've come from, like I said, I had that and I added 6 grams in the drive head, so it used to feel heavy in the head, and now it just feels.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I just don't know where it is. Like.
Okay. And certainly shaft-wise, it's sort of it's very good quality shaft. It's the proper Ventus rather than the one without the Velocor in. And you're very stable in the tip. We'll have a look at. We'll do a few with it as is, and then I can put some weight on and get it up to more in line with sort of around the D1, which is where it would be with roughly 6 grams on. And we can get a comparison with that. But yeah, nothing strange. So 5, there's a reasonable bit of feel for the head. Reasonable. It's not crazy heavy, but there's a reasonable bit of sensation with the head. They're very in line with the irons, and same with the hybrid. The shaft's not a particularly, neither the fairway nor the hybrid shafts are particularly tip balanced. In the irons, the Modus is naturally a little bit more tip weighted.
Oh, is it?
So the F1 and the Thori series is much more tip weighted, and then the Ventus Blue sits kind of in the middle. It's sort of mid to low mid balance, but it's not noticeably. The black will be much more in the tip end. So it'll be interesting to see. From
struggle a bit with the black, to be honest. We'll see. We'll get there when we get there. But yeah, I feel like I have to swing differently at the hybrid.
Yeah, that one is a. I wouldn't go as far as saying it's counterbalanced, but the balance point does sit a little higher up.
Okay, yeah.
Actually, weight proportions to the Fairway Wood are pretty well in sync. You're going from a 76, 7 gram shaft in the Fairway Wood to 83 or 4 in the hybrid. So that's fairly in line. Actually, so is the driver shaft being around 65 as well. So they're not out of kilter in principle, but the balance points change up a little bit.
So the length, that shaft, you got 44.25. Is that what you'd say like playing length is? Like,
so that's measured to basically just under effectively where the top of the shaft will be, just a hair under the top of the grip cap.
But to the top here?
No, that's playing length. That's it's measured through the
hosel,
through the one to kind of into in line with where there's a contact point in line with the sole.
Right.
So yeah, that's playing length rather than shaft length. Shaft length will be 42 3/4.
All right. I was just surprised because I asked it to be 44.5.
There are the one thing that there are even between manufacturers. TaylorMade measure it slightly differently to Ping, measure it slightly different to Titleist. So this is sort of something that's very much an industry, a standard way of measuring it, but they all have little quirks in. And are they measuring to, that's equivalent to the top of the shaft, some do it top of the grip cap.
Yeah, okay.
Then there's some grips that have more of a grip cap than others. So there are lots of standards in golf, and it's the one thing where each brand tends to have a slightly different way of doing it. So. But yeah, so where that is effectively top of the shaft. So it's to just, so if I were to do it at the top of the grip cap, that would be 1/8 of an inch longer. So technically would be within 1/8 of an inch, which then you've got tolerances on. Yeah, sometimes some of these, if they're depending how they're calibrated, but also slightly different methodologies of where they're measuring it to.
Yeah, like the USGA have their own sort of. Is that different from?
It's more. So it's like Ping have their own one where they have there are some where you put a different angle on the bottom. It's the one frustration is that there are some different ways of measuring, but essentially this one's one of the widest used. So that's something that's kind of effectively standardised between a lot of club makers would use this one. So, but essentially it's to a point on the sole. If you were to take it across from the grounding out point. If you were to take a line across to extend the shaft through, it's to that point. So it's effectively to all the way through to the ground point, essentially.
So nothing like a new glove.
Yeah, it always goes well with a new glove on. And if that size-wise, if it's not quite right, we can get you a slightly different size. But, so what we'll do is I'll measure the exact loft on this, and then once you feel, get a few looseners with the driver, once you feel suitably limber, we'll get a bit of data. What do you do work-wise?
So, easiest way to describe it is like a business consultant, but I specialise in the deaf and disabled community.
Okay.
So, yeah, just providing all sort of services to communication support and how to improve their businesses. And,
That's an answer you've had to work out how to get.
Yeah, it's taken a long time just to simplify.
Whereabouts are you playing your golf now?
So I'm a member in Hertfordshire, Brickenden Grange. But we basically play like a different course every week.
Yeah.
Mainly around Essex and Hertfordshire.
Yeah.
A bit thin.
Be fair to say you're a perfectionist?
Sorry?
Be fair to say you're a perfectionist?
Yeah.
So when you said that one's thin, I was like, oh, that sounded pretty good. So the nice thing is, based on what you were saying earlier about shot shape, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't expecting to see a path that was as neutral as that, which is great. I was expecting it to be about 4 or 5 into out and have a rotate. So that, on that now, that's almost certainly down to what you're working on at the moment. But
yeah,
you know, that's definitely not got a pull hook in there. So some of it, because you do pick the club up and you get a little bit across, then the club's got to drop down and in. So that's where it can then drop behind and then rotate and sort of flip over, and then that's the really destructive one. So it's really key for you to keep your body turning through to lead, and then that creates that as more of a miss. But equally speaking, that means you're going to be very sensitive to where the balance point is, because the club's got to kind of almost drop down into plane and then not get stuck behind you.
Yeah.
There's quite a narrow window on balance.
Yeah, tell me about it.
But you route it back onto a really nice path. I mean, this last few, 1, 1.6, 0.8, yeah, that's 0.0. It's a very neutral path line through. So it's really about managing that face rotation and getting it to the point where, I don't say limited, if body stalls out, then the moment you've got that kind of drop, then it can flip a little bit. But as long as you keep going with the swing and can finish the turn, I want to see a bit of a drift right as the one that is the miss rather than the lasso. So, but that definitely makes sense where, with the driver saying where you haven't got the extra weight on, you need to know where that club head is to be able to this, because there's that bit of timing involved. So good news, it makes sense, which is always a good start point. And so as and when you're ready, we can go and get a few loosens with the driver, and then we'll get some data. Tee height, I can move that up or down.
Yeah, I like a quite high tee, to be honest.
So if you turn it, I mean, that one probably not too far off.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
If it needs to go down a little bit, we can just turn it clockwise and it'll take it down slightly.
Yeah, that does need to go down a bit.
Often looks lower than it is because the base sticks out.
Yeah.
So, but I can say plenty we can move from there. Pop that onto there.
Yeah, all good.
So as and when you're ready. Actually, because you grip down a little bit as well, effectively the swing weight drops. So because you're shortening that lever, if you go down a ½ an inch, you're losing 2-3 swing weight points of effective balance.
Lie angle as well, does it?
It'll make it sit a little more toe down. Iron, well, on all of them, irons it'll have more of an effect than the woods, in terms of the result, because there's more loft on the irons. The more you change lie, the loft creates more of an effect on where the face is, with start line, where the face is pointing. On no loft, of course, if you go up or down, there's no difference at all. But on a 60-degree wedge, then it makes a noticeable difference. So the least difference will be on the driver in the bag.
Okay.
Okay, let me put that bit of extra weight on there, because I can see whilst that one's actually come out reasonable face angle, I can definitely see there's not a lot to respond to. So I'm just going to take it up from C8.5. I'll take it up to just over D0 just to see. Use that as almost like a kind of a normalise. Yeah, I can definitely see where.
Up 9.
That one, a little bit of bump off the mat, that one, so that can exaggerate it a bit. But because of that angle of attack wise, the previous one was 8 and a bit. So so you've got the more it's just you're adding a decent bit of dynamic loft to the club through impact. So in the moment it goes just a bit too high, then pop up goes the launch and spin. You lose a bit of ball speed. Let's take that off just to get an accurate measure. And if you get a bit too high, the spin can then flare. So, I mean, if you're 6 degrees plus on angle of attack, you're never going to hit a low ball, just because to get the flight down enough to get the launch angle to a low ball flight, there'd just be no spin on it, so it would just knuckle. So, it's like Rory's never going to be the lowest ball flight player because he's got that upward angle of attack. So that's something that certainly, I think, visually you're always going to be up, forward.
Yeah.
But, you know, an upward angle of attack creates efficient distance. Okay, let's see where that goes to with that extra weight on. Okay, yeah, but better straight away. You can see the club stays with you a little bit better.
Yeah, it felt, I can feel it.
A little less exaggerated on angle of attack as well. Okay, solid. Yeah, so quite interesting how direct that is in terms of, you see you were 8, 9 up, 6 or 7, now the paths stayed the same. Face angles tightened up, consistency, face angle and impacts tightened up a bit, but you're less upward through the ball. So the launch angles come down a bit because it's creating a little bit of a drop rather than being able to flip at it. So that automatically has pared that flight down and actually kept a little bit more spin on that as well because the angle of attack's a bit less exaggerated. It certainly as a baseline, I don't know if I put
and
those.
the speed's gone up as well because of.
Yeah, a little bit more to hit against. So it's one of those things where we'd often people say, oh, surely lighter would go quicker, but actually if there's nothing to build speed with, then you can't put the same amount of energy in. So if I take those two as an average based on kind of optimal flight, I'm not in a bad place. So certainly, I mean, the 9-degree head absolutely is the better way to go. 100%. That 10.5 would have been into orbit.
Yeah, it went very high and it felt spinny and just think, oh, I really nailed that one, and it's just the same distance as the last one.
Yeah. And at least with that, you're now getting, you know, I mean, peak height's still going to be, you know, up at 99 feet, not going to be low, but you've got a decent amount of ball speed, so that impacts that a certain amount. But with the only other change being, actually, it wasn't, because you've got more ball speed with the heavier setup, it actually peaked higher. I mean, the other ones were pretty low spin, but they launched almost, you know, degree and a half higher. But actually, that really high launch, really low spin is a bit more volatile from a carry. You don't quite launch it and then it knuckles off. So, you know, so certainly, it's probably worth just getting a couple more with that as is, but certainly a better.
So what is that equivalent? Is that equivalent to?
So we put on 2 swing rate points.
Okay, so 4 is it?
Yeah, or give or take a fraction, but yeah. Approximately 4 grams. Yeah.
A bit necky.
Yeah, although a good miss in that respect held it a bit. Okay.
One more? Or
yeah, one more would be great, and then what I'll do is I'll start kind of looking at I'll start to work the back. I mean, that's, in all honesty, is not a million miles off. Because of the nature of your action where it goes sort of up and then drops and then round, if it was noticeably off, then the ball's going to be all over the shop. You wouldn't have that ability to regulate club face unless you had some of the most amazing hands in the world to regulate with the amount of effort going in to time it that cleanly. So certainly the connection between you and the club in terms of as you start down, the club's coming with you, the main body of the club's, as you turn through, if the hand lem's getting out of sync and you had that bit of a drop in, then the face is going all over the place. So actually the base raw weight of it, really pretty close.
Okay.
Just warming up.
Yeah, just stick to those yellow balls to start with, and then we will go to your normal ball approach,
Yeah, solid contact. Yeah, so just held open a little bit, really solid contact. So, okay. Yeah, so in principle, I mean, heavier weight, definitely a good thing. I go on to total distance. So you can see consistency of yardage, very good. And once you've got the head weight, I say as long as you keep going through with the swing and complete your rotation, there isn't anything over there. If you get a bit unsure of where it's going to go and your body stalls out, that's when it can really whip. So that's certainly from a playing point of view, it's not a case of having to hit it harder, but as long as you complete your body rotation, then the shaft can lead the club face, and then that will have more of a right hand misses or certainly start right as a tendency, rather than if that stalls out, then the club head whips around, and then that's the one you get the quick hook.
Yeah.
So
well, it's when you
so easy in theory, but
yeah,
as long as you can finish the swing.
Yeah, I've been working. Yeah, like I said, the drills I'm doing and stuff are based around rotation.
Yeah,
so I'm trying
that's going to make a noticeable difference. I mean, the other good side here, and it's really consistent through, is actually, if anything, that club path's starting to get a little bit less with the heavier head, rather than, because it's not flipping as much, you're not having to start it as far right to get it back to target, so you can actually start to square off and leave the face on line more. So those that last in particular actually slightly open on the club face. But there aren't any scary big numbers there, which is nice.
So the club, this is in to out, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And minus is
slightly closed. So
okay.
On the horizontal measures, minus left plus right. So actually, in terms of your, we're going to averages here. So your average shot shape is 6 yards. Now, granted, there's one at the end that just drifted right slightly, and there's a slight heel strike on this one that just held the shape, stopped it overturning a little bit. But even so, 4.5, 2.5, that's only drawing to left centre. That's not ripping left by any stretch of the imagination. Start to get to the 4s and 5s, then yeah, then you're starting to hit quite a bit of shape. But definitely nothing scary there. Certainly with that extra weight on the head, definitely a good baseline. I'll use this head as a benchmark there. And the head actually, from a launch and spin point of view, certainly in a very stable place as well. So, but that lower loft's a massive key for you.
Yeah.
So, I'll have a look at a few different shafts in this as a base point, and see if we change the weight and the balance points, how does that affect?
So I remember I watched a number of your videos, fitting sessions, and I remember you saying about how the weight, like this, the weight being at front and back, can encourage that left as well. So having them close together can help sort of straighten out that hook.
It kind of depends. So it depends where your miss is. So if your miss was right, that's then where the further back, if you've got an action, which you do, where it goes, essentially from a club face point of view, it goes there and then round and then needs to square. So if your miss was right, then a club with a lot of weight at the back will tend to exaggerate that open face. Potentially for you, it helps to regulate the left hand miss, because you've got to work that much harder to square it back up. So it can be a benefit. Was there been anything on the face, or was that sticker on the face previously?
Yeah, there's a sticker on the face.
I'll get that bit of residue off just in case it affects anything. Okay, that's better. Right.
But I mean, you've put that weight on the toe. It's like if I get the head weight, it's going to go right at the an extra 4 grams. It's going to go right at the back, isn't it? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, 4 grams on a 200 gram head, you're looking at a couple of percent. So technically, there is a slight, you call it a fade bias from that, and actually, in terms of gearing against the left-hand side, you could make the argument, so why not stick it on the toe, because that's going to create a little bit more of that. Yeah. Or it's going to create a little bit more of a drop open that you've got to then work harder again to square that off. It's relatively marginal, but there is an argument for someone with that left-hand miss to put it out on the toe. So I put it there partly because it's one of the biggest areas, but it's also going to have the most effect on the swing weight. So I'll get a I'm going to get one shaft just to see what length it comes out initially.
Really nice sort of, you know, from a golfing perspective, you know, I'm not even sure, to be honest, you'd be allowed to play with a brace on, not playing in the US Open. I mean, but, you know, because it's in a position there, really all you kind of got to do is set just a hard, you almost know that.
Swing weight calibration, plug that one.
Oh, okay.
So every morning we, through the day,
Reset
doing
the
fix, we
machines,
calibrate the
yeah.
machines, yeah. Okay, so those ones are slightly short. So we'll use the ones that will come out a little bit longer, just because I don't want them to be, well, I guess you'd have to, if we use that one, you'd have to grip it right at the end. So it depends whether you're more comfortable gripping something right at the end or going down the grip, because we can go either way.
I always grip down.
Okay, I get the slightly longer base shaft then. Just got a few initially. I just want to change, have a look at the balance point in the shaft and see what that does.
VA.
Yeah.
Don't know what their different models are, but I just know their shafts are always very colourful.
They do. They definitely major on the visuals more than most. So let's see where that sits. In fact, okay. So these ones are all going to be that sort of 5/8 of an inch longer. So it's going to feel, once we get, if we get one that starts to work next to be better, I'll then put the bigger grip on just to make that a bit more comfortable down the bottom end. But we'll start with that as is to compare.
Well, we'll see how many we can get through, but so yeah, how was it the first?
Is it lighter?
No.
Oh,
I'll let you swing it then, I'll tell you.
okay.
Or I thought technically about a gram, but bit of a noticeable balance point change.
Yeah.
Okay, so shaft-wise I went a bit more weight in the bottom end. And
really?
Started to exaggerate path and mean you're having to then catapult that out a little bit more.
It feels strange.
So should feel a little harder work. So I mean, a lot of this is, I'd be surprised if we beat that by much. So a bit of this is saying, right, if we do change this, what does it do? Because if we don't try it, there's an element you could say, oh, is that something you've just dialed in? But equally, you know, it does, once we've got the weight in it, it's a pretty good set of numbers. So it's going to be worth a change. It's going to be worth a change, especially when it's a proper one rather than a...
Yeah, I think I had that, must have been when Rory gave away the Open at St Andrews. When was that?
A couple of years back.
Yeah, I bought that
shaft.
shaft.
A year and a half ago, yeah. And some would say Cam Smith won it, but I know what you mean. Yeah, he didn't hold anything on the Sunday, did he?
Yeah.
That's been one of the interesting sort of conversations we've been having about the principle of the ball rollback and stuff like that. So actually at the Open, the long hitters don't win very often. You have to go back to, technically you can say Oosthuizen was a long hitter, maybe Stenson, but over the last batch of years you've got, Larry's not short, but he's not a power hitter. You've got Cam Smith, Morikawa, Lowry, Jordan Spieth. There's so many of the players that aren't the real bombers. That and the Masters similar. They're not short hitters, but they're not the out and out bombers.
I just think it's just another half measure though, isn't it? It's, what are they talking about, 5% predicted, and then in a couple of years the manufacturers would have done this, that and the other, and they'll be hitting it further than they do now. It's like,
well, I think it depends how they do it. It'd be interesting to see when the full details are.
So it's ball speed, isn't it? So they test it at a specific swing speed, and it can't go further.
Yeah.
So you know, if they play around with aerodynamic packages and compression and blah blah blah,
they're pretty close. Because the thing is, there's only because of the amount of info we've got and how that can be dialed in. There's only so much more that could be gained for the guys. Now, granted, they might prioritise now a bit more control, a bit more spin versus a little bit more yardage. But on a 7,500 yard course, or then a 7,500 yard course plays the equivalent of 7, 8. But it's only really relevant to that top 0.1% of golfers. It's a really difficult one because
people are using doing the whole moral outrage thing. It's like, oh, they're making golf harder. It's like, it's not going to make any difference for me. Like, do you know what I mean? Like you said, because they're testing it at 127 miles an hour.
Yeah. Well, it's about, if it's the same proportion for everybody, it's about a club and a half, 2 clubs into each green difference. Now, granted, you could say, well, I'm hitting 7 clubs more into greens now than I was in the summer. So there is an effect. However, that's what different teeing grounds are for.
Yeah.
It's
in this country as well. I mean, look, the golf course is like 100 years old, and they're relatively short anyway. Like a lot of the courses I play are short.
So, but you're quite long off the tee. So most people average the average for any golfer, any standard, is still 230.
Okay.
So they're still more than big enough. I think it's
yeah, but all I think is like that 5%. Like I said, they're measuring at 127 to 25 mile swing speed. As you come down to whatever 90, 80, 75, is it going to be a 5%? Is that going to decrease?
I think these are all the bits to be determined. Yeah.
Will it be like 1.5% for me, or what? I don't know. Like, yeah.
So, I mean, I'm with the opinion. I think the game's hard enough, and maybe limiting loft at the other end, saying you can't go more than 56 degrees. Stop them going at flags the whole time.
Yeah.
Maybe punish them, reward a bit of skill around the greens, or a bit more skill around the greens versus, it's a very difficult one because there isn't the nature of the game. It's not like at Wimbledon where they can say, right, you're using a slower ball at Wimbledon and you're using a different one at Roland Garros. And complicated.
It is very complicated, yeah.
Glad I'm not making the rules.
But yeah, I'm old enough to remember when the driver heads were like 5 woods.
Yeah.
That was difficult.
Was a big one. Yeah.
That was difficult.
Yeah. But after, if you're hitting a fairway bunker, that was it, done.
Cut across it a bit, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so certainly if you're going dead weight too heavy or balance too head heavy is going to be much more damaging than playing neutral to slightly lighter mid in terms of raw weight, because the slightly lighter weight you can get from the top, you can get the club back out in front of you. Heavy goes here and then creates that as a fetch.
So the dead weight of...
Drop that down to sort of 61.
Okay, yeah.
So a little bit lighter dead weight.
It does feel, it does feel a bit lighter.
Then is that a bit light and now brings in that flip. Okay. I'll watch one more of that and I'll take it back up a little. Okay. Just be a bit light. Okay. Let me get those 2 out the way, get a couple others.
Oh, it's toe.
It's interesting going back up those few grams, more in line with this one. club speed's gone back up a little bit again. Yeah, a mile an hour and a half straight away.
That was horrible.
So I know not contact-wise where you want it to be, but going back up in weight, we're back into being more stable from a face-to-path point of view. So that tracking of the club is definitely tighter at this kind of weight. I'm going to pop that other one into this. Then I'll go back to that as almost like a normalise.
You're happy with the head? You wouldn't try any other heads?
Currently, I just want to dial the shaft in, just make sure on that first. So, I mean, certainly it's certainly a solid option. You know, it'll be interesting when we go back to that, see where the data goes. But we've got the option to turn it down a little bit more if we want to. This is currently in just the standard position.
Okay.
Okay, I'll see one more there. Okay, not quite so good. Okay, let me pop you just as a. So I mean the VF in terms of the way it swings looks to me to be the closest to your current setup. Certainly, I've not seen anything that I think has noticeably beaten it, but it'll be interesting to go back to it and see, having hit a load of other options, whether it looks quite as clean this time around as first batch. I'll leave the washer off for the moment whilst I get it dialed in. That bit. There we go. Great, thank you. Okay, a little lower on the face, but going very, very stable. So it spun a little bit there, but very, very stable on the.
Was it? Oh, low.
No, just low. Neutral low. Yeah.
Okay. Very low.
Bit of a funky one. Let's do take that one off. I'll do just watch. I'll watch one other with that, and then we can go back over some of the data. Let me tee that up a fraction. Okay. Sweet. Okay, so that's nice and solid. So what there is, well, actually those first couple earlier on were actually, with that when we added a bit of weight, were actually the quicker swings we've had. A little bit less now, but you've hit a few more shots. But in terms of...
I'm trying not to breathe heavy.
So I always do under this. Swinging a driver is a lot of work. So you know, with that setup there, that with the extra weight on, we can see where, you know, ball speed on average 144. With that one, we matched it. With the others, we didn't quite get there with anything else. So a little stronger than without the weight on, but I think you need that weight to be able to pull down and keep working through it, rather than having almost to pull and steer a little bit. So that's certainly good. I mean, there are a couple, I think, a little off centre out of the VF, out of the slightly longer shaft length. I think we're seeing a little bit more club speed. I think that one allowed you to let it go as much as possible because I think it's the closest in terms of timing to that. So it might be interesting to put one of those at the longer length in and just see whether it does the same thing on club speed. But the strike wasn't quite as efficient. So whilst you've gained on club speed, we've gained nothing on ball speed.
Okay.
And because the strike's not as stable, you've lost out on flight efficiency. So that's, and when someone's got an action like you do where you've got to get the club back down and then square the face off, slightly shorter length is just going to be easier to manage in that. So does that ultimately contact efficiency will outride a few miles an hour ball speed because one, control, but also that efficiency of flight. You know, that 1,000 revs of spin, bear in mind it's the same head, the same loft, just with a different shaft in, and actually face to path on average still very good. Being a little bit longer, a little bit more into out, but same angle of attack. So the only thing that's changed is path has gone a little bit more inside because of the long side, half an inch longer length. But the drop off in efficiency from losing strike point, just not worth losing. If I take out the ones we really, so the tip heavy one was okay, good ball speed, but much more shut on the face. The lighter one was okay, but that had, you can see the tolerance, 4.7 degrees tolerance. So the average looks great, but if we dig a little deeper, we've got close to 6 open. Yeah. So we get rid of that one. And then of these, that one again wasn't quite as that XC dropped you a bit more into out, lost control of the face. So what we're really, what we're really looking at, I mean, ultimately, is there's one there that was a little bit, that was the one low on the face, so that dropped a bit of distance. But essentially, so that's your original one. It's not too bad, but we got it squared off a little bit more. Actually, timing's a little bit more reliable with the, it looks very marginal difference. We've got a few that are just out slightly longer, but a bit more reliable with a heavier weight. You can use that weight a little bit more. You manage it well because it swings well. So it's a case of, if it's with you, it's less adjustments on the face. If it's out of sync, it's big adjustments. But whilst the other shaft had a bit more speed, we can see it's lost you the efficiency. So it's similar kind of pattern, but just 20 yards shorter, which isn't much use. So it'll be interesting to see. I'll get the longer version
45
of that shaft. Is
your usual build length.
It's a kind of, a lot of brands are standard have gone longer.
44,
just to try and
45 and a half,
up club speed. But the problem is on a robot it goes quicker because there's no.
I'm saying your build length.
We tend not to go above 45 if we can help it. It's rare for an amateur golfer. Even the top tour pros don't often go much above 45 unless they're just trying to eke out every last bit of yardage and they're just willing to give a little bit of left-right dispersion. But average on tours certainly no more than 45. So we would tend to be, that would be in general the longest we'd go to, and often that little bit shorter. But I'll get the 45-inch version and see what that does to the dispersion pattern. And this one's got a +4 on as well, actually, by coincidence. But on certainly on face value, there looks, it's a great quality shaft. It's the head, certainly everything looks to be working very well. So we'll get a comparison on head too. But essentially, other than one low on the face, if I were to take that off and look at the other contacts, then your tolerance on spin's 180 revolutions, and there's a 5-yard tolerance total on yardage, with a very consistent 1 degree, 1.3 tolerance on face to path, 1.5 on path. So, notwithstanding
it's consistently bad.
No, I've seen far scarier than that.
I don't know. It doesn't feel like that when I'm on the golf course, though.
I think sometimes it's And we're all guilty of it, but it's easy to forget how hard a golf is. And you know, yeah, due to that little bit of a quirk with the swing of that little drop around, your margin of error on timing is a little smaller than some others. So potentially in here, where there's not as much of a consequence, it's as freed up swing as we're going to see you do. But actually, but that ultimately just shows us what the mind and mouth out of sync potential for your swing is, if you can start to trust that the club's working well and know that actually as long as you complete the swing and getting that left hip out the way, that stops the stall out on the real big flip. Occasionally you're going to have one that goes left, occasionally just, again, that's just the nature of the beast from a swing pattern point of view.
I just had, I played Finchley 2 weekends ago. I shot 80. And then I just got a little bit precious at the end because I was playing so well. And I hooked 2 drives. I was 2 over on the 4, up on the 13th tee. And then hook 7, then another hook, and it's like, but then last weekend I played, and I just nothing, just terrible. It was just all over the place.
It's it's golf, isn't it? That moment, the moment the brain starts to kick in.
Feels nice. It felt good.
Yeah, I mean, so shaft definitely moves really, really well. Yeah, it's definitely, you know, it would be horribly commercial of me suggesting you to buy a new shaft. Because what I say, it's a great quality one. The dead weight and the timing suit really well. Once we find the head weight, get that aligned up, it's really solid.
Not such a great strike, but so you said the longer shaft can get stuck and you flip it.
It can do. So it can, because of where you pick it up a little bit with your arms. I'm going to exaggerate and get there, and then it's got to go that way. The longer it gets, the more that way it can get. And then if you keep going with it, it's going to be the one that stays out that way. But if you then stall out a little bit, then it can really, because the only way of getting the club head back to it is whipping your hands around.
Yeah.
So that's where, if anyone has that sort of, have to drop it back in, long can create a bit of volatility. Yeah, it's quite interesting in that, you know, we are, I mean, that was well hit, but like first one, well, there's not necessarily a jump up in speed, just maybe that VF just moved a little bit faster. But again, let me just take out the ones we're not, just to show the relevant numbers on screen. If I take that one off for the moment and go back to the dispersion pattern, you can see where there's one over there, one back there, rather than the grouping up there. So the longer length, well, you could stick a plug in the top of it, but it's suboptimal. Or you can buy another shaft, but at that cost, there's not minor benefit to be had. As in, not a lot of the average club speed is 0.4 of a mile an hour slower, with that potentially just having to do a little bit more work with the face. So, you know, the marginal change, and there's tiny changes in weight with that. Technically a bit more speed, but the strike went off. That shaft actually you kept, okay, got a little bit lower, but fairly centered on the strike. If I go, it's because I've deselected it. Sorry, let me. No, it didn't verify a couple of those. Okay, likely to be a little bit more into that section from where the spin's gone. You know, so you know, because that's, you know, square face, so it's either slightly on the lower half, but you know, again, that's why it's back there. Whereas with your current setup, but a little heavier, it's a tighter strike pattern with the slightly shorter length. So that's really where you pick up the efficiency, and the spin stays a bit lower because it's just staying on a better bit of the head. So yeah, it's minimal benefit from a change. I mean, actually, in terms of where that sits and the tolerance and the flight, it's a very hard one to argue making a change, actually, other than getting the head weight up, because you can put that on optimise. Okay, theory, there's 5 yards. You could achieve that by just turning the loft down a little bit, but having said that, you then start to bring the spin, because of your attack angle. From a safety net point of view and a dispersion, I'm almost happier seeing that spinning. It's not high, it's 2-1.
Yeah.
Happier seeing the spin sat there because it doesn't have that low dipper. And lower spin, there was one a little higher up the face. You know, so that one there, you get it a bit higher up the face, and then you get into that lower spin, and there's the yardage. So, but the fact that if those couple there, that's at 2.2. 2000, it's in quite a safe window for spin. So we can try a load of other heads. We can certainly go to some and see what difference it makes. So it'd be interesting to compare the current version and see where that sits. I think that might bring launch down a little.
I would like to, I'll try anything you suggest, but I'd like to try I had to go the triple diamond, quite like that, but I can't remember like numbers or anything, especially. And yeah, the TSR3, just everyone raves about that. But yeah, like I say, I'm directed by yourself.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, so I get those couple of heads in particular, and they're actually quite. What's nice, they're similar in terms of the scale of the head, but quite different in terms of what the spin might be. Yeah, the Cobra heads are underrated generally, I think.
Yeah. I forget what model it is, but it's like, 15 years ago I had a Cobra head, and then I got rid of it for the TaylorMade Tour Burner.
Oh, okay.
And
it's going back a bit.
Yeah, exactly. So before the TaylorMade Tour Burner, I had the Cobra 9 degree, and I loved that thing. Yeah. And then I changed that in, and then I had the Tour Burner for quite a while, but it was change it for a Titleist, like what would it have been, like 917D or something like that. Yeah. I hate. God, that didn't last long at all.
No, I can see that. Yeah, they weren't the lowest spin things, and just off centre. That was when Titleists were in there. You kind of almost need to be good to use it, kind of stage. Yeah.
And then back to TaylorMade again. But then I've always like had a affection for Cobra,
I think because they were always the second brand to Titleist things, and they were always done the wacky colours. They've been perceived as a bit less, a bit of a lesser product than they are. But they've always innovated quite a bit.
Yeah. Quite like the mill face as well, to be honest.
Yeah, the only thing the milled face can do is hold a little bit of moisture on the face. So you can get, in wet conditions, you can get a little bit of almost like a kind of an aquaplane on it. It can just sit in the face. So they have actually, like in the Aerojet, they stopped it.
Oh, did they?
So Matt uses the
last one,
the LTD, the LS one, and very, very good. But it can, so it can hold a little bit of moisture on the face.
See the other one, the Speed Zone, it wrapped over the top, which I quite liked as sort of an alignment, and and against idiot marks if you if you lent it to someone or something.
Okay, so that's the triple diamond Paradym.
Okay. So this is the 45.
Yeah.
See, that looks a bit close to me. But
Okay.
I'm just going to hit. Yeah.
Okay, so let me just move. I'm just going to do one thing. I'm just going to move the weight. I had the weight at the front there. Just going to move it back and see whether that helps it track a little better. Essentially, the further we move the weight away from the shaft tip, it gears in a little bit more. So, and so for some players that's a bad thing, whereas you've got plenty of strength to square the toe over. So actually, it might help regulate that a little bit. So that it's one of those, in principle, you can go, okay, well that could create an issue, but in the same way that it can create an issue, it can solve an issue.
Yeah.
So.
That's why I'm here, yeah.
Theory.
I've done a lot of this stuff trying to work it out myself, which has not worked out so well. So,
yeah, well, I mean, so you certainly got very close to what you need. That's for sure. Okay, that one whips over a little bit more. Okay, yeah, let me change that. That head definitely doesn't time as well as the Cobra. Okay. Right.
Turning over just a little bit. I'm going to pop that last shot up. This action was, if I call this at the start of the session, I'll say, after that last one.
Just need that little bit more weight in again. Put it on an even placing on this.
The higher end of the blue and the lower end of the blue is absolutely perfect.
Just a fraction more than the Callaway. Okay.
thank you.
It just feels nice though. Yeah. Like the good hit, but a little bit. Yeah, it just feels like I'm controlling the head.
Oh.
It just looks very much in the second half.
Yeah.
So with your own shot,
Similar thing here.
get the above on the chest onto there, it's there, and this one you just don't need to do it, which the first few swings with it, you're still making those.
Okay. I was going to change the structure of the head a bit just to see whether, because both of these are the slightly more compact head sizes.
Yeah, it just feels like they're squat, aren't they? Heel to toe, they're squat and they're deeper.
So I'm just going to get the weight sat almost a little bit more towards that kind of profile. The weight sat back a little further, because even, that head on this shaft was definitely better than both of those.
Yeah.
So just getting that weight set back a little bit further. Is there anywhere recently you've played that you've enjoyed particularly?
Yeah, so basically we were members, like I play with 3 guys every Sunday. We were members in Essex, Worley. They got taken over and started making some changes, not for the better. So basically we looked around and we found Brickenham Grange in Hertfordshire, and now we've just been sort of investigating Hertfordshire, and yeah, so many great courses. You know, like the Brickendens are just like the greens are amazing. West Herts
makes a big difference. Yeah, West Herts would be good,
yeah, West Herts is brilliant, and yeah, we're just going through them really. There's a few. There's Hadley Wood. I really want to play. I think is that a Mackenzie? Yeah. And then Varden did the South Hearts, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So I haven't played those.
South Hearts is have your putting boots on for South Hearts.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a long course, but they're a green. If you're on the wrong side of the green, and they've got the greens at the pace they can get them.
Yeah.
Good luck. Yeah. They've got a tournament there called the. What's it called? Mine's gone blank. I'll think of it in a minute. Hudson Trophy, there we go. There used to be a lot of the top pros, so it's a pro, so it's 2 pairs foursomes scratch, cumulative scratch total for 36 holes, and 1 pro, 1 amateur, and then 2 amateurs. So it used to be back in the day you'd get Bernard Gallagher and a load of the tour pros were club pros and they'd play in it, so it used to be a huge event. It's still a good one to play in, so yeah, but no, good course, fun course.
Yeah, have you ever played Old Ford Manor? No,
I haven't, no.
It's a shame, you know, I think it was 2 summers ago when it was like really hot for a long period, they just lost the fairways, like, the grass just went. Hasn't really recovered that well, but the greens, I don't know who designed it, but the greens are just so much fun, like an elephant graveyard, you know, it's brilliant. And if you play in summer, obviously they're quicker, and I think one of my friends, he was on the green for 2 and ended up with like a 7. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's funny if it's not you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. You know what, there's definitely more stable. I mean, the first one went that little bit left, but that second one, you can see as it drops, you could then just keep moving against it and it not shut down as much. So there's definitely an element of that deeper weighting where it's got lighter crown, lighter centre, more weight at the back, that definitely keeps the face from turning quite as early. So it's still doable, but with that head and the shots of this one, once that club since it kind of drops, then it looks like you can leave it there a little bit more rather than it getting flipped. So we'd often use, depending on someone's rotation pattern, there are some players that the smaller head helps to square it up because they haven't got to work quite as hard. But then equally speaking, if someone does open it, then that can be both a good thing or a bad thing. For you, it's a good thing, the deeper weight, because it means that you can keep driving against it and not roll it too early. So it definitely hangs onto the face a little bit. I mean, you take that one there, really nice hit. Solid club speed, solid ball speed. Flights in basically a very similar. That one's a hair higher launch, but a very similar place to this. So happily build your club if you like. However, I don't believe, short of adding weight to that, there's a significant advantage from a change, other than we need to give you that extra feel of the club head. 100%. That lower loft, and the Cobra heads are quite strong on spin actually as well, so they're quite a strong flight in the main. Aerojet's continued on from the LTDX in that respect, but there's nothing that can substantially improve it. You'd be looking at £400 or £500 plus for, I don't think, any extra distance. And I think where that shorter shaft helps you is that a little bit of a tighter dispersion. So, but short of there's, in terms of weights, I'd have to see what's doable on those. I think they tended to be the 10 was the heavier one. You could do it a couple of ways. There is a hot melt option to put a bit of glue into the toe end and get it internally up there, which certainly doable. The only downside of that in terms of really cold temperatures is it can lose its stick and come loose. Granted, you warm it up and it can re-stick.
It's one of those things that, you know, if you, yeah, I'd rather not have lead tape, but I'd rather have lead tape than hot melt. Like,
well, it's just because of when it gets extreme cold, then effectively it hardens up, so it gets less stuck to the wall, so it can come loose, and it is, the fixes are warm it up and then it re-adheres. Basically an industrial strength hairdryer to get it melted back down and then leave it to hang and dry on the toe side. But if we acetone wipe, get all the grit off and then fresh tape on that toe side, it's staying on a heck of a long time. Eventually it will need replacing, but it's the lesser of the evils, because you can't ruin a head by putting a bit of tape
exactly,
on so but certainly that as a solution definitely is, other than just a feel-good element of having a new head, it's in terms of on average is as good as anything.
Okay, so, no, that's good. I thought I might have been losing like speed and yardage with the short shaft, but you know, you've proven that.
Well, technically, yeah, a little bit of speed, but made up for in the consistency of the contact.
Yeah,
it's always that bit of a, you know, do you lose too much versus but actually because you lose more on the flight efficiency on the missed strikes on the longer length, that extra bit of reliability on the left to right dispersion and the better contact overrides any of the club speed loss. There's kind of 2 or 3 miles an hour club speed would potentially mean 7 or 8 yards total distance, all else being equal, but it isn't.
Doesn't,
the better strike's going to override anything. And because you've got the speed you've got the potential for 270 plus yards, other than some of the really big courses, it's more than long enough for everywhere.
Yeah.
And so, I'd certainly prioritise that left-right dispersion.
Okay.
We pop that one off. And as soon as you got the 9-degree head, if it wasn't the 9-degree head, then we'd be
Yeah, I was worried about that as well, but I'm glad you confirmed that.
Bang on. Yeah, and it's genuinely just a really good set of numbers. So it's not like I'm stood there going, oh, well, technically there's a little bit. I'm really not sure there's much you can gain. It was a good purchase. Although, maybe the +4 grip just sort of feels a bit more comfortable in the bottom end.
Yeah, it doesn't feel.
Absolutely.
They put some extra wraps under it, but it doesn't feel the same.
That's a different one. Yeah, it's not quite. It's not a million miles off, but it's not quite. Yeah. So, right.
Fairway Wood.
Right, tells 1,000 stories.
Yeah. So I bought this one because I'd seen plenty of reviews and it was saying it was a more spinny head. Obviously being shallow on everything or up on everything. You know, Fairway Wood is just a disaster.
It's a tougher element, yeah, definitely.
So,
I mean, with this, do you want me to put it? I can put it on a low tee if you like.
No.
Or
Because to be honest, I just hit. If I'm not hitting driver, I hit 5-iron a lot off the tee.
Okay.
It just goes miles. I would like something, but I don't feel confident enough in this for it to be that option, do you know?
Yeah. Okay.
So if I'm hitting this off the ground, I just try and think of the heel getting there first to the ball.
Yeah.
Because it just helps me with hitting the ball first rather than hitting it. So that's why the shape might be different.
Okay. Okay.
Good line. Not as good as some of the stripes, but good.
Okay, so it's definitely one of the things that I'm looking for, like, which we could see with the driver, is there's a natural flow and a timing. Once we've got the weight on the head, there's a natural kind of flow from the top through and a freedom through the ball. This one is definitely getting a little more behind, and then that creates a little bit of a flip, or you've got to shove the handle at the ball to bottom out at the right spot. So it's generally just getting a little bit behind you. Now, whether a bit of that is, you know, maybe a little less of a committed strike. Actually, the club speed's pretty in line. Whether kind of a trusting swing, just almost a bit less. It's not a speed thing, maybe just a bit less sure.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
having said that, it's definitely not coming with you as well.
Yeah.
We're not seeing that kind of extension through where everything's synced up and you're just collecting the ball. So certainly, I mean, one of the things, like the first things I'm going to have a look at is I want to look at getting a few grams less in the shaft, but give you, like with this one, the balance point's sort of lower mid. It's not very tip balanced, but that one's more upper mid. So it doesn't naturally want to drop in quite as well. At that weight, I think if we went tip balanced, it could drop right behind you. So that's why I just want to drop a few grams out. But it's just not, it's not allowing you just to move on to it and find strike. If we can start to find strike more regularly, then we can gauge where the picture flies. Naturally. But yeah, definitely not as much flow. So we're going to get something.
See,
which is a little.
The length as well, isn't it? It's like.
It's sort of on the upper side for a 5 wood. Getting off again more like 42. And again, I think particularly for yourself, just the slightly shorter side of vertical standard. Again, is going to help you get on top and get ball first, rather than the longer it gets, the more behind. So I'll get, just so I can manage head weight, I'll get a different head just so I can manage the balance to start with, and then quite potentially I can pop it onto that head as well once we see where we get to.
I'm just, you know, I've been struggling with, I'll have to come back to you for a wedge fit as well, because, yeah, these wedges. So, like I said, I've had my irons for just over a year, more, closer to 18 months, and I love them. They just go so far, and that big gap, you know, between sand wedge and pitching wedge. Yeah, I bought the hot metal gap wedge, but it was horrible. Sold that.
Quite a different head, that.
Oh, yeah. It's so much offset, and it was just so different. And then I ended up buying the Mizuno T22.
Okay, yeah.
But I just found that's quite short heel to toe.
Right.
And then that was different to the SM8s I've got, like, which are longer head. I just found, like, every time I got the gap wedge in my hand, I wasn't that confident with it.
Yeah.
So then I ended up buying.
It's a pity with that it's almost goes it just doesn't quite track with the set.
No.
It's a shame it doesn't quite blend. Hopefully the next series, it'll be next year, and have a little bit more consistency in visually how they sit. See one more. I have pushed the balance point a little bit, so it might just need reining back a little bit. Yeah, so just go on dead weight's better, but one a little bit too head heavy, so that's just doing that bit too much. That's good, at least we found too much the other way. Okay, let me do one more before I go to that other one. Yeah, I think certainly that little bit of a lighter total weight is a good thing. Bit more on the head there. Just going to get I need just a little extra weight for that. I'm going to grab that on one of the other heads.
played Silvermere a few times, drove past it on the way here. It's quite difficult.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, if all the holes were like the ones on the clubhouse side, I mean, it'd be a great course, but it'd be blooming impossible.
Yeah,
So not wide.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Even like the very first hole, it's like, you know, you just got out of the car park and you're like, oh God.
Yeah, it's not the way you want to utilise the range, is it?
Yeah.
The way your ball ends up on the first tee shot. Yeah. Yeah, and those first few are just like 3 that goes down the other side, it's just narrow. Yeah.
I tend to, whenever I play golf,
Okay, that was better. It's still a little right, but that was definitely better.
I guess like you said, something to break 90. So what is it? 30 to this play golf.
Okay, well, what's one more there? Okay. It's definitely, we're kind of dialing, so we're around the 70 gram mark now. If we go...
Feels like a Mensa test, but trying to hit a fairway wood. It's hard work.
Well, it's one, I mean, good side is where your delivery lines are, again, staying nice and neutral. It's just that we're on a driver where you can drop it and then sweep up, and that gives you a bit more time to get everything squared. And where the club drops under, you can then kind of play catch up and find the ball. On the forward, it's being on the ground. You've got just basically zero margin of error on timing. So it might be that actually on the fairway wood, setting up a little bit open, almost playing a bit of a fade. It sounds ironic where you're kind of worried about the left of the driver, but where it doesn't have the time to get up and close, almost has to find that bottom out point. The face might well stay a little more open.
Yeah.
So it could well be that it's more a kind of a aim a bit left to start a bit left and then drop back, but makes a safer shot out of it, potentially.
Are you still playing through the winter?
It's probably about to come to an end, I would say. Actually I played yesterday down the south coast, and
whereabouts?
It was at Royal St George's.
Okay.
And that was, I'm going to predict my last game this year, apart from maybe, I normally do 9 holes on Christmas morning,
Nice.
if it's dry, but yeah, it was, thankfully there wasn't a lot of rain,
the wind.
but that was quite cool. There was lots of layers, thermals and gloves, and but I mean the course is in great condition, the best I've seen it in the winter time, but yeah, it was it's a good 4-ball.
It's cold,
but it's verging
cold.
on unenjoyable.
Yeah. We played the Hertfordshire. It's designed by Jack Nicklaus' son.
Okay,
So it's a bit American. The front line's very resorty, sort of open, but the back line's very nice, really interesting. Starts moving through the woodlands.
Yeah.
But with the amount of rain, it was in just amazing condition. You know?
Okay. Yeah, there were puddles between the clubhouse and the first tee at Sandwich, but then the rest of the course was, I mean, it's a link, so but the rest of the course was as good as I've seen it in winter. Okay. So just taking a little bit more, so that one to me looked like it was a kind of slightly held.
Yeah, I aimed at the tree.
And a little bit of a more freed up move, interesting.
Tried to cut it,
So I think with the fairway, if we get it working well, I don't think you need to try and cut. I think it naturally will. So because you haven't got that time effectively to square and close the face up.
Okay.
Off the ground where you've got to meet it at the bottom, it's going to be, I think, naturally just before it squares. So almost like a kind of a slight drift without you having to try to.
Okay, so just aim a bit left and let it do what it wants.
Let it just drift. Yeah, I think again, if you keep your body turning through like the driver, because it's not on the way back up,
Yeah.
there isn't that extra rotation time to square off. So I think almost letting it be a little bit of a drift. Okay, don't put a fraction more head weight on that.
Yeah.
It's definitely closer. This is actually a similar shaft weight. It's a few grams heavier, but a similar shaft weight to driver.
But the balance point is lower, you're saying?
It's actually, again, still pretty neutral. It's not too different. I'll watch one more. I might switch, because there are two ways that you can do it in the shaft in the bottom end, or you can do it just in the head. So this one's more in the head. Yeah, let me just do it in the shaft rather than the club, because that starts to then look a little bit detached and a bit less in control. Certainly in a better place from a raw weight point of view. Right. Yeah, so take that extra head weight back out, because we've now got it in the bottom half of the club rather than just in the head.
Problem with giving out so early though is that you won't get back out till March, will you? If you wait for the good. January and February are brutal, aren't they?
So I think there's a nice sort of roll-up culture at the club. So on a weekend morning,
Okay,
you can take a late call.
Yeah.
Just sort of pull the covers back over your head or go out.
Yeah.
If there is definitely that risk. Yeah. I'm not too fair weather a golfer. I just, yeah, frosty golf and very wet golf are not fun. Okay. There's a little bit of mat and ball together on that one, but that's starting to look like it's moving better. And actually what we're starting to see now is plenty of flight. So you might be able to should be able to take a bit of loft off this, I think. I'll watch one more
I was overslung.
I know it just came up on it a bit, came out of it a little bit, but yeah. I'll watch one more of that. Okay, that's more like it. Yeah, let me go to a slightly different head just to take a bit of spin off. That's just popping the spin a little bit too much.
So what are you looking for? And 3.5 or just under 4?
No, I think if we're looking for something to land softly, kind of upper half of 3000s. If we're looking for a stronger flight, then down kind of 3.2, 3.3 would be nice. It's a safe amount of spin without it being a balloon. So that's something that the Paradym series has the shallower head profile, but should be stronger on spin than the Ping. Jim really has been. Will you go out in any condition?
Pretty much, yeah.
I remember getting one photo one year from some guys up at Oban who were get one washer, proudly stood in the first tee in snow. It's like,
Yeah, I have done it. Don't want to do it again, but
It's what I played a couple of weekends ago, and it was a beautiful day, but it was cold, and I thinned my first iron shot. And I thought I'd never get the feeling back in my fingers. I was successfully not fatting it, because that was the main thing in my head. But so similar shallow profile, so you're not having to kind of really get down to get to the bottom of the ball, but it has been very successful at keeping the spin from getting up too much. I've just taken the loft down a little bit on this one as well. Low from a stronger flight.
What your thoughts? To be honest,
Okay, and a little lower on the face, so that'll so a bit better ball speed. Let me take a fraction of the head weight off. It's just staying a touch open. Yes, that's the first one we've had over 130 ball speed, which is much more representative. Okay, so I know it's a little low on the face, that's squared up better. Oh, I say square, you've got it back, your path went a bit more left actually on that one, but it was, okay.
oh God, it's just bad.
Just, if it's okay, just watch one more of that, just to see a flex. It's what we've got with that head. I know the direction's been a little off, but actually we're starting to get a better ball speed 135, 137. If we can start to get that squaring up a little bit more naturally, then we're really in business. Just staying right. Okay.
I don't know, it's just, it feels fine.
Yeah, contact's much more solid. It's whether, and it certainly makes sense as a club that it's going to be the hardest one. And the longest club off the ground, least loft, that's the one where you're going to get the most sort of opening of the face on the back on the downswing, and then the longest lever to try and square off. I wonder whether, I get one of the shots, I wonder if there's almost an element of being a little less certain what it's going to do, so being a bit less freed up through the ball.
Yeah, I definitely feel...
Certainly it's close, so the delivery line, not a problem there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, really neutral.
I feel like it's more me than what you're putting in my hand.
I mean, certainly one of the things we're seeing, when you get the contact, there's more than enough ball flight. So trajectory definitely isn't, you know, it almost seeing that as almost whether we need to start going down again. You're not, your angle of attack, okay, 1.5 up. So when you see it in numbers, you know, it sounds quite a bit, but you know, if that's flat, 1.5 is that.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's nothing exaggerated at all. Okay. Okay, let me just put loft down. But much more squared up, slightly on the heel, so that's where it's seen it just shape a bit, but again, there's plenty of flight from that delivery. So I'm just going to go down to a 3-wood loft.
It's shorter. Is that shorter, that shaft?
This one's at well, it's an 1/8 inch longer than in this head. Maybe 1/4 inch longer than your current one. Yeah, just over 42.5. So not a dissimilar length to your current fairway wood. So you could still take it just a hair shorter. Let's see how that swings. So this has just got the loft back down a little bit more from that last one. So that last one got the club face squared off a lot more. And we have a 3-wood distance.
3-wood feel. Sorry, 3-wood. The shaft feels good.
Yeah. So both those together is a face to target 1/2 degree. Yeah, and that's almost the shot we were saying earlier about, if you just keep going with it and don't try to work it too much. That's coming with you.
Feels easier, this shaft, to manage.
Oh, it's 10 grams lighter than your current one. So, and slightly, within a couple of grams of the driver shaft, but the driver shaft, you've got that ability to rip up through it. So actually proportionally the heavier shaft stops you whipping it over. That one you can get back out and square it off a little bit more. But we're now at a point where that is, in terms of spin, launch, that's still height-wise 76 feet, 25 yards. So it's not low from a trajectory point of view, but it is in a much stronger place there. So if we're looking at 260 plus with the driver, well, that now is a representative distance back, and there's still, in principle, still a few miles more to get out of it. But as you say, that didn't look like you had to.
No, it felt easy.
And then you haven't got to manage ball flight, so you can then now with that start to just hit rather than hit it. Oh, it's gone miles high. Try to get it down. Much more neutral delivery. So that's a much more useful shot as a strategy club off the tee as well, because you're then not having to give up 50 yards from the driver to keep it in play. And the shallow head makes it much more usable the loft makes that usable off the ground, but the deep head makes it, you're likely to get what feels like a thin strike regularly. You can get that kind of low on the face contact, whereas because that's shallower, the centre of gravity is lower, so it collects the ball, gets into the bottom of the ball better. And say angle of attack 1.5, that's nothing major. So.
A bit ground, but
bit of ground ball, but down the same pattern. Slightly more open, so it's gone a bit more right, but it's not. It's a
manageable.
It's a consistent shot. So, and I think some of that is where that's blooming hard, as it's a 77 gram shaft versus 66. And that's where it gets behind you, and then it's either come out of it, dump it in the ground, flip it over, whereas that you can start to hold your posture more and just turn onto it and collect it.
It does feel much easier.
A bit of weight came off the bottom as you hit, but again, so, and this is where, so even though not middle, I'll pop the weight back onto there, but thank you. But what we can see here, path 0.0, face to path 0.7, it's not out the middle, but it's got some flight efficiency and still 229 down the middle of the fairway. So I think there's an element of this which is just build, the more confidence you build with it, the more you start to let it go, keep turning through, square it off, versus those that are just that little bit drifted right. But we're now starting to see much more consistency of shot pattern, because the clubs are now coming with you more, and that's the big issue. Quite often you'd go 7-10 grams heavier in a fairway. It's more because of the nature of your action, heavier just drops it in behind.
Yeah.
So more of that with that weight back on, but that looks a really good. So it's very, very good flight as well. It's in a really nice place trajectory wise.
Bit low, but I'll take it.
That's what we call commercial. So again, it's squaring off more. So you can get away with a slight high, slight low contact because one, it's now with you, so a little bit behind the ball, can scoot into the back of the ball. A little bit clean like that, well, it's squared off. So you actually got loads of ball speed, and it's just, that's a killer in match play, that one. So it always just trundles up to about 10.
But always those ones that...
But that dispersion pattern now is well hit and a little right, or squared off, a neutral, or a little bit low on the face, neutral. So at worst, a little low on the face, open, it just drops right.
Yeah.
But we've now got is it going to show me everything on there?
Well, like the first, whatever, I don't know how many options we tried, but the first 4 or 5, it felt like you were hazing me or something. Then you gave me this, and it just feels like, oh, why did you do that at the start?
There's a science to it there. But if I get that back onto there, what we'll see just from a general dispersion pattern point of view, I'll just keep that one rather than putting tons of shots on the screen. So, again we've got there. So one a little shorter, whereas that was just a strike side of things. Yeah. So a little less well hit, drifted a bit right, but it's not wildly out of play, and the rest are all in a pretty narrow window. So, and then that's where it sort of started from. So, much better overall contact. Efficiency-wise, pretty good, but a much stronger flight. But again, we're back into small tolerances on face to path and pass now. So, I think that shallow head's a key thing. Definitely the lower loft, but definitely the lighter shaft point. Okay. So quite a, whereas with the driver we're going, well, it's not really a bit of weight, but that's optimal. We'll start to get to, what was it? That one, pretty darn close to optimal from a distance. There's a couple of miles an hour more ball speed to come out of it as that squares up. You put that contact on that swing line, and you go 240. But it's in a really nice, again, 300 revs on spin. It's in a really nice repeating flight window, and that should then give you something that you can use as a safety net. Very low T, doesn't need much of a T. It's like on the castle ones, we like one of those little green ones. You don't need, don't need to tee it up much at all.
So currently, that at the moment I would use. I very rarely use it off the tee, but in the fairway, it's like as we're getting winter, then it's almost like a green tee, isn't it? Because they let the fairway height, the grass grows a little longer, or if you're in the first cut,
there's
it's
a little bit underneath it.
I can get hold of that one. But if it's a tight fairway in the summer, it's like, ooh.
Yeah, and even that one, then at the moment, you're just going to get the ones that just dump into the ground behind it, or have that one that's gone 40 yards right. Where that's, especially where the course you're playing, that's just lost, or it's right into deep into the trees. So what's nice, I haven't filtered any of those out, and they're all in that channel there. But also it's not such a drop back from the driver. Their very best 5-wood is going to be where, maybe 215, might get to 220, but we've got comfortably 15 yards on that. But it sits in a better place to driver. The bit that I would be looking at with the driver from a data point of view, comparison is that's then carrying to just on or beyond just whether that's running out to. So you can run up to something, or you can carry it to a similar distance. It gives you choices. At the moment, you're as you say, you're driver or 5-iron, which is not much of a strategy call. So that driver, it's a bit of weight. That's say lower loft, lighter, shallower head. But lengthwise, we can keep it the same length. If we can, we may, with head weights, we might sort of creep it shorter, but we don't need to go any longer.
No. Yeah,
we can definitely.
I
Get that
definitely
length down.
prefer shorter if we can do shorter.
I'll put this on as a kind of a maximum length, so that we can get a little bit more weight into the head to get it slightly shorter. But, okay.
So I find I quite like it. Very high. Very high.
Yeah.
You know, if I flush it, then it's okay. It goes that extra 10 yards on my 5-iron.
Yeah.
If not quite hit well, which is high and comes down similar, ends up in a similar sort of place.
Well, I mean, 1 degree difference in loft. So yeah, and then that head that'll kind of kick through a bit more, adds a bit of spin. Yeah. It'll be interesting just to see where C1 with your 5-iron, if that's okay, just to get a comparison. A little bit matte ball. So there's definitely so the iron shafts have a bit of bounce in the bottom end. That one is more towards the grip end, and there's definitely again that little bit more natural drop in with slightly lower weight.
Irons just feel, you know, you can just smash them and they're good.
I mean, certainly, I think the last shot with a hybrid, because it came out a little bit low on the face, it kept it forwards a bit more. But I could see if you catch it, it's just going to go up. First one 16 launch. That last one was 11 because it was a bit lower on the face. Relative to where we are with this, in terms of gapping and getting more shot value than the 5-iron, you would be looking at it being 210, 215 on a solid hit would be where I'd like to see it, because I'd say that's probably.
Usually I use this 190. Yeah, it's 190 off a fairway shot, and off a tee, be 200.
Yeah. So let me I'll start with. I mean, the TSI2 also, the I series was more higher spin than the current TSR series, so that and the 21 was definitely going to stick it up in the air. I guess for this shot, is it more about filling a distance gap and sort of consistency as a positional shot?
I mean, like, it's more fairway, off of fairways or rough. You know, it might be the odd par 3 that you might need it, but I'd rather just try and hit the cover off a 5-iron, to be honest. I don't really like hitting hybrids off tee. Like, do you know what I mean?
Got it. Okay. So certainly I'll need to turn the loft down. So you need me to go and walk next door.
Yeah.
Okay.
Seems like irons I can just hit all day, and it just like I just flushed a couple of 5-irons, and it just like settled me down a bit. Like the wood just feels, like I say, it just feels like I'm being tested all the time. Like, oh god.
It definitely as that shaft length off the deck sort of proportionally kicks up a little bit more. That's where it does become a little more testy. It's got heavy weight in. Probably go off. There's always a bit of the bag that challenges. For me, it's always been wedges. Give me anything full swing, I'm fine. Wedges just not as, say, quirk of my action, but just not as proportionally nowhere near as accurate.
I used to love like the little 3/4 wedges, like get me sort of anywhere between 90 and 130, and then I got these new irons. Just can't do it anymore. Just don't know why. Because I was used to have regular shafts as well, and then I went to stiff, and it just doesn't feel like I've got that shot anymore. Like
the little flex on its own wouldn't have changed that.
Don't know. It just feels something feels. Yeah, thank you.
So log these bits in. Great, thanks. Okay, that's a little light. Okay, so just want to bit relative to the 80. I wanted to bring the weight down a little bit. That's just a little too far. I could see that straight away because it didn't drop in.
Cute.
This is going to send you maybe I'll use one of still can't get used to these things, so I like
Okay. Watch one more. I might just push that a little bit heavier. But still a bit lighter than your current one. Okay, yeah, still need a bit more weight. Okay. Better with a bit more weight in the bottom part of it, but again, as you fire, it kind of exaggerates. It kind of goes that way rather than pulling you down to the ball. Go too subtle in the chain. Okay, yeah.
So the Nippon Ghost, is that more for the driving irons?
Yeah, it's quite a bit heavier.
Okay,
it's up at 95, 100 odd grams, 195, 105. But it's a much one of those sort of harder shaft. Is very much more, yeah, I'd say more along the driving iron side.
Yeah, because I tried it on a driver. I quite liked it on a driving iron a few years ago.
Yeah, it's not a wildly dissimilar weight to maybe a touch lighter and the less stiff flexes than your current iron shafts.
Yeah.
Darn sight dearer.
Is it?
Because of the graphite on steel, the multi-compound element of it. But yeah, much more suited to, it's designed really to pare it down, almost give an iron-like performance.
Yeah.
You can put hybrid heads on the bottom, but they tend to work being more the iron-like hybrid heads.
Yeah. So I had the Mizuno, was it Pro Fly High?
Yeah.
But I had that hazardous black shaft in it. I just couldn't get on with it.
That tends to work. It still works for some players, but it tends to work better in a hybrid head versus an iron head.
Yeah.
Again, because the iron head, the centre of gravity sits close to the shaft, you're losing again a little bit of that pop and kick from it.
Just don't. Yeah, I've never got on with the hazardous stuff. Just feels so bored. Like there's no feel in it.
It can feel a little harder. Yeah.
Okay. Sort of hung on to it a bit, but
Okay.
a bit of ground.
Okay.
Better.
Just put a fraction more headweight
Toey,
on
yeah, a
that.
bit toey.
Just a fraction more headweight, but that's better. That's okay. So that pushing, we're up at basically at 80 grams. That's then starting just to sync those up again. So
Yeah.
this is, whereas the fairway wood sits much more in line with the driver, this is a little bit more of a step towards the irons in terms of setup. Okay, it's got much better flow.
Yeah, feels good. Shaft feels good.
Okay. And what's nice about that's the same sort of pattern as the fairway wood as well. So that shot pattern of neutral or, oh, just seen a phantom shot. Let me go. So I kind of swish the club. And
Okay.
yeah, much more consistent contact and strike, and you know, shot pattern slightly out the heel that just made it spin a little bit. Okay, I'm just going to switch head on that one. That's shaft wise certainly in a good place. So ironically, the swing weight's only half a point difference from that hazardous. So the static balance,
okay,
but
right.
the weight's in quite
the
a
balance
different place.
point, yeah, it's different.
So this is much more near the lower half of the shaft. So again, much more in line with your iron
Yeah.
shaft.
Yeah, it's just amazing how you can go through all this stuff and then you just find immediately you can just tell that feels better. You know, obviously I've got to deliver it, but it feels like I've got a better chance of.
Yeah, as you say, if it feels like you can at least not have to really try hard to find the ball with it, you can start to get. I always think if you start to get the sensation of like a decent contact easily, then a lot of the other stuff falls into place.
So this is the TSR 2, is it?
Yeah, the 3's a bit of a
Beast.
cannon. I think it's a little more iron-like, where you still pick it. I think that's head style-wise, it's going to basically constantly feel a bit thin. Whereas this is a little bit more of a wood-like hybrid, which just suits a shallower delivery. The ping's pretty solid. It's certainly not a bad performance.
So we'll get a confirmation email. Well, the process we do keep you updated.
Mad.
Okay, so I went slightly safe on loft. So
I just feel like it's amazing how I can keep the club in front of me now.
yeah.
Even if it wasn't a great swing, it just felt like it was in front
it's
of
not
me.
destructive,
Yeah.
which is certainly for this club is definitely option number one.
I guess I really enjoyed this session. I think next time, I bought this 3 years ago, so maybe next year I might.
So let me just push that marginally more headway. So between the different heads, some just need a bit more swing weight than others. That could just do with being just a touch heavier. Oh, actually, it was a little bit light. I thought it wasn't. It was just a. That could just do with a fraction more.
having all the options just gives us
It should be a little bit better.
distance. I'm sure there's more I could get out of it. It's just kind of like dispersion sometimes. Like just needs, yeah, something like that.
Give me one more, I'll put the ping head back on.
So there's drive section, there's forward fitting where you can do that, wedge fitting, obviously you've got so you can break it down.
It's alright, I wouldn't say it's as consistent as the ping. Actually, I'll put the ping head back on. I think it just came through a little more consistently. See if that meets the ball a little bit more consistently. Certainly the strike just seemed a little bit more stable last time round, I think. Yeah, just a cleaner contact. Shaft matched the sweater well as well, I think. Yeah, it's a much more. I'm going to change the lie. I put it in the flatter lie just from visually to not make it look left. But yeah, the quality of strike is definitely more consistent on that. Hybrids are that's very much one of those quirk of the head. The head design, just a better head profile will just get into the back of the ball better. So the centre of gravities shift around a little bit more. They're a little bit more kind of good bad. Versus, you know, a lot of drive heads you could hit a few and get away with a few.
Yeah.
Hybrids just doesn't work like that. It's whether someone's favourite club or least favourite club.
Yeah, yeah.
So this one's just changed lie rather than anything else.
No, it's kind of just, I tend to just rebuy those because there's one variable, one bit of variability out. Depending on what might be changing. So the X is the highest limit.
Okay, so it's just turning over a little bit more. I think based on your pattern, I'd probably err to the flatter lie.
Yeah.
Because again, that way it's not trying to go that way. I think the flatter lie, from a pattern point of view, a miss that way is going to be, I think, visually more comfortable than it's starting to want to go there.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I feel like the slight right miss, I feel like I can manage or control. Like when it starts going left, just all bets are off. Like I don't know what's going on.
And that was literally just the flatter lie just holds the face a little bit better for you. But where we're also at with those is into that, 210, 215. Yeah, that kind of loft gap we were talking about earlier, saying right, that's sitting in a nice window. There's enough flight, enough control on its landing. Like with these ones, for example, you're getting. I don't want it hotter than that, but that's up at again 80 yards, based nearly verging on 40 land angle. That one will be up that little bit higher. So with the really clean hits, just pick it up a little bit more. There's still plenty of stopping power without it being moonball. So head style's doing that, but also getting the loft down to 19.
Yeah, I just thought I didn't want to buy a rescue and then there'd be a huge gap between the 5-iron and the rescue, or like crunch the 5 wood. So I thought get 21.
Yeah, and the 5 wood to 21 absolutely, but then the 21 to 22. Yeah. And then the 5-iron going flat, and the hybrid up.
Yeah.
The problem is that then brings in the 5-iron going further than the hybrid at times, and with the flight on the hybrid, any zephyr of wind into it, it's just like hitting a brick wall.
Yeah.
It's got a little funky that one. solid contact. Body just stalled out a little bit. This is probably because you're 90 odd shots in. Nice, actually nice spin. So again, solid distance, about 217. Yeah, nice hit.
Felt better.
Yeah. Yeah, so that one's just made sure it hasn't gone left a little bit, but it's a nice stable spin. I think for me, what that one gives you relative to something like the driving iron becomes only useful off a tee.
Yeah.
That then gives you something that that shot, for example, aim a little left and just hold the face of it, then it goes up. But you can, the hybrid versus a fairway wood, the benefit is you can play it like a iron a little bit more. So it's more of an extension off the irons rather than the longer shaft on the fairway wood. The smaller head will get into a little bit of a funky lie a little bit better as well. But the shorter shaft just means reliability for me. So I think where it's in a, again we're sitting, if I find that fairway wood date, click the wrong button. There we go. Yeah, so the cleaner hits, yeah, and then we're into pretty close to carrying off the ground, carrying close to where that's stopping, and then kicking on. So that same principle of carry, run out, carry, run out, carry, run out. We've got with the fairway to driver. So balance and distances looks nice, and so you've got plenty of height there. You know, that one again up at 90 odd feet. That's got plenty of stop to it if you want it. And one before you get a little bit more on top and drive it forwards, then 25 yards rather than 30 yards, but it's got a little bit more forward to it. So I think if we were in a bit of a no man's land with this and you just needed something to just put it in play off the tee, I mean, you could argue the 5-iron gives you that. I think we've got the fairway wood and the hybrid too. I think they give you better all-round options. I think if we really couldn't find consistency here, then putting a driving iron in at kind of 18 degrees to try and pump as much distance as possible off the tee whilst keeping it straight, I could see that being an option. But I think where those are getting to, I think the versatility of those, and if all else, you've always got your 5-iron to go back to, just to stick it in play a couple of hundred yards out in a short par 4. But I think for where the others are, and for me, there looks enough consistency there to say, that doesn't look like an area which should be too scary. So I think the balance of those two, off the driver from a flight distance and sort of progression in terms of keep that more similar to the driver but make that more like the irons, whereas at the moment that's more like it's almost slightly higher balance than the driver, and then the fairway is just heavy. So that blend of shots you're getting through those looks like a much better balance of shots and better options at the top.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Would be interesting to see how, just from a grip point of view, let's see how that one sits in your hands. So, especially where you go down a little. Okay. And then if you can take your right hand off and pop it back on again for me. Yeah, and just place it back on. It's an interesting one as to whether to, I'll just see it on that one as well, as whether to, because you go down the grip a little bit, whether actually to build out, that bottom hand just a little bit more.
I have thought that. I don't know, for some reason, sometimes I turn up at the golf course and I think that bottom hand feels really not filling out the hand sometimes. Maybe I'm gripping down even more than usual.
Your hand dimensions as well. So if we're looking at kind of some of the length, so it's some people are quite long there, and then but your hand actually goes longer into that bit. Mine kicks back more, so your palm extends out that way. So actually that distance is much longer than mine. Okay. That's also where, even if you didn't grip down it, we'd be looking to reduce the taper anyway. Okay. So I think, probably actually building out the bottom hand just a little bit extra just means you're not then having to hold on tight with that. I think the softer we can keep that, the less of an aggressive recovery on the face you're going to get, and a little bit more stability. So I think just generally marginally bigger than standard, but just taking any of that taper out, it's almost, it won't end up being a reverse taper, but it doesn't need to be no smaller than the top hand. In terms of with that, do you like the multi-compounds as a grip type? Yeah, so I won't try and, the grip works, I'm not going to try and take you away from that. You have colour preferences.
Yeah, well, all the others were grey, so just, yeah.
Keep it inoffensive.
Yeah, keep it simple.
So one of the other things, obviously, we get all components in, and then everything's built in the workshop next door. So we were saying about calibrating the swing weight scales and everything earlier. They're all calibrated with the workshop. One of the things we do is the puring, shaft puring. So it's and it's on the sticker on the back here where they've got
spine alignment.
So
yeah.
spining is the puring's a mechanised, for want of a better, it's similar principles in that with steel, it's just the straightness, so that if it's like a snooker cue, if you roll it, the tip flips. And with the composites, it's a more complicated structure, so you've got resins and the different kind of wraps and layering.
Stuff, yeah.
So once the shaft's trimmed to length and tip preparation, it's then loaded into a chuck, dip the tip under a load cell and it's rolled, so you measure the upward force and you get the 360 consistency of that shaft.
Yeah.
Then a control test in logo up, and then based on its most stable point, stiffest point, sorry, they find the most stable point. They put a mass on the end, it's oscillated and basically trying to get it to recover back onto its most stable point, which is then placed target side. It really, I said the analogy I always use is balancing a car wheel. You're not changing the properties of the shaft, but trying to get, as it loads and recovers, as much stability in that position as possible. So, particularly things like driver heads, where on a mishit, the deflection of the head, if it's on that stable point, it's going to resist as much as possible, rather than actually deflect onto a stable point and deflect even further. So it's really just about getting the properties the shaft's designed for, but also tightening up the spin profiles and dispersion pattern a little bit. So it does mean that, like with this one, the logos can come out anywhere. Although with these, they too tend to come out on one of the 4 points of the compass. So they're definitely doing, we suspect they're doing something in the structure of it. It's why, like that. It's a pretty subtle logo, but it's why some of the reasons why some of the logos are the same all the way around. Similar to that, it's got that, but it's a very uniform logo around the shaft, so that wherever it comes out, it's not really obvious. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll pop these, and we'll keep this again similar to that fairway. Don't want to go longer than we have to, rather keep it down slightly on the less long side. But that's just spec wise, where the fairway and the driver, we don't go too strong on weighting. With the hybrid, there's a little bit more in the club head, but that sits more in line with where your irons are. So there's that little bit of a fairway driver, hybrid into irons from a spec and a setup point.
So with the weight you added, it's at still D.0, is it?
Yeah, but swing weight's not an absolute measure. So if you were to extend that up to 45 inches, then to keep it feeling the same in the head, then you're going to, broadly speaking, get to about D4.5. So it's, because it doesn't take into account what the components are and what length they're at, it's just literally a static balance around a fixed fulcrum. It's a slightly fluid set of random letters and numbers. So within the iron set, absolutely, there's a relevance to it because of the same components in a standard progression. So within themselves, you can say, right, the 8 iron is a little bit lighter, the 5 iron is a little bit heavier. And you might find kind of within those, there's a particular favourite. There'll be a sweet spot in there, but that is kind of like an absolute measure within that set. But if you were to say take them an inch longer, then D2 would feel really light in the head. So it's sort of golf getting sort of scientific, but not quite.
Okay.
So, but it's a similar thing. We're slightly shorter than standard on the 3-wood head in the fairway wood. So again, it's that same almost proportion, a half inch or so under standard. Hence, they sit very, very close to one another.
But so could you pure that and put the grip same?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, no problem at all. This would be quite interesting. We can put a little mark on where it is, and then through it and go out and see how it comes out.
How it differs from the spine alignment.
What you do get with the reports is a before and after picture as well, so you can see how many degrees it's turned, what percentage improvement, and those are all reports that we can get to. Because you'll probably quite like those.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is, as I'll just pop into the workshop, just got to save one thing down and then flip it across, so I can create a quote for you there. I'll base it around pewing, regripping, reweighting that. I mean, there is the only thing with this that's not changing. There is an update. There's a new head model.
Yeah, it's usually January, February, isn't it?
Late Jan, yeah.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, that affects price. Do you know what I mean?
It won't for us because we rode it direct from Callaway.
Yeah.
But it would be something that, as and when someone, if they've got stock they want to get rid of, come early mid-January, or once the embargoes lift and everyone's all, really aware of what's coming in there, then there's a strong chance you could get the head for, and there's no issues at all if you could find a head and want to just bring it in and we could put a shaft in, no problem at all.
Yeah.
What it is, I'll put a quote together including complete club.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I can always rejig that as and how and if and what and
okay. Yeah.
So I'll be 2 minutes. I'll pop into the workshop, save that down, generate the quote, and then I'll come back out.